Testing. We're standing on stolen land, settlers and heirs to violence, centuries of suffering, and no one before us minded this. But now we are here and we care and we're queer. We're gonna call out so explicitly these histories of misery. Your colonies we despise and join the cries of every BIPOCLGB TQ IAETC etc. Hello and welcome to 6 years of YouTube as a pundit. I did have a YouTube channel that I appropriated when I began reporting on the Evergreen College on June 11th, 2017, and now it's June 11th, 2023, 6 whole years. It's been quite an amazing journey. I wanted to share my first video, a edited version that Mike Nana, God bless his soul, edited and put on Twitter, so we can remember and see just how far I've come, if I have indeed come anywhere at all. I haven't done one of these live streams. I feel a little nervous, so hopefully I'll loosen up in a little bit. Checking in with the chat now and then. If you guys have any questions, concerns, or queries that you want to address to me in this 40 minutes or so of me discussing my channel and just shooting my mouth off, because it's been quite a year. It's been quite a 6 years. Amazingly enough, I'll be 47. I'll be 47 in July 7th, that is, and things are changing again. My channel's going to be rearranged. I'm moving from outside. Here we go. I'm an open book to you. Maybe I'll edit that out later. So I want to thank everybody involved in this channel, viewerships, likers, dislikers, haters, lovers, etc., for participating in this glorious counter-revolutionary force that I've been putting on, starting again with the Evergreen College. And maybe I should play that video. I'll wait just a little bit more on that video. Actually, I should probably play that video so we can take a sip of this cool, hoppy beverage to get me through this live stream. Helen Blatavatsky, who I should have practiced her name enough to be able to say it on stream. She says, Gen X represent. Yes, I am Gen X. I think I'm on the earlier side of the Gen X thing. And I have a new best friend who has the exact same age as me. She's 10 days younger than me, so we share a lot of timestamps in our life. It's pretty interesting to get to know this person who is almost the exact same age as me. And that is part of my channel too. So the channel has brought me so many different things. It's changed my life in so many different ways. Let's look at where I was 6 years ago, and for a little bit of context. So the Evergreen College in Olympia, Washington, in the spring of 2017, performed a rabid intersectional meltdown where students took over the campus and roamed the campus with bats, took professors and administrators hostage, threatened all these different things. I made a huge documentary. It's about 9 hours long, 24 episodes. At some point I will have to go through and reproduce that whole thing, reproduce, or what, redux the whole thing, like whatever the, director's cut kind of thing, and reshoot all of the parts where I'm talking. I think I actually deleted a lot of my information. Somehow there was a corruption in one of my hard drives and I lost a lot of the Evergreen footage. But I think I have all the footage. It's just squirreled away in all these different places and stuff. So it'll be kind of a interesting project to go back through and clean that all up. So anyway, on May 23rd, there was a protest at Brett Weinstein's class, and then the students went over and had this big struggle session, amazing struggle session. They filmed the whole thing in vertical video, just to show the world their struggle, thine camp. And it was very campy too. That's actually kind of cool. If it like a Hitler, campy Hitler, Mein Camp, with Jamil leading the charge, that would be kind of cool, wouldn't it? And so they took over the college, and then the 24th, they did an even bigger protest. The 25th, they tried to do another protest. Brett Weinstein goes on Tucker Carlson, and this whole thing streams onto the internet. And everybody on the internet is talking about this thing. So I'm a student there. I'm wrapping up my degree there. I got a degree in narrative arts. I wrote 5 novels and read a bunch of theory and stuff like that. And I was trying to figure out a way to go past postmodernism in a literary sense. What I didn't know that there was this other current of postmodernism called critical theory that I was watching unfold and watching happen. And in subsequent years, especially in dialogue with James Lindsay, I kind of understood more about the philosophical and the political aspect of postmodernism. But I was trying to attack postmodernism, not attack postmodernism, because you don't attack postmodernism. You fold it into a greater structure from a literary point of view. That was my entire project there. I went there when I was 36. I graduated right before I was going to turn 40. I finished my main project, this magnum opus. Here, let me show you. It's right around here. This was like my senior thesis. It's a 725 page, 425,000 word document with all the major forms of literature that I care about: plays, poetry, different forms of poetry, fairy tale, mythology, modern novel, and the postmodern commentary fiction. And my aim at going to Evergreen was to get past postmodernism. Anyway, so I saw political postmodernism work itself out, and over the course of the 2016 to 2017 school year, especially with the election of Donald Trump, I saw the students agitating more and more and more around racial lines. And what I had seen as a not just as a student, but a student worker working film and camera, I documented these seminars, these workshops, and all these different training sessions that the administration and the professors were subjecting themselves and the students to. And then I saw the direct outcome of that. And the direct outcome was this huge major protest. It was just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Nobody could actually tell it unless you actually saw the footage. That's what I tried to do, as you all know. And so while I was watching it happen in person, I was also watching them upload all this stuff onto Facebook, and I was connected to all the people through Facebook, and I'm just like looking at this in horror. And then I saw on YouTube, because I'd kind of been following the Gamergate anti-SJW stuff on YouTube, just kind of as a viewer. I never thought that I would be doing that kind of stuff, but I was watching that stuff unfold, and then I watched all these commentators and pundits on YouTube take this stuff and just run with it. The entire internet just blew up talking about this stuff. Twitter, Brett went on Rogan, Brett went on Dave Rubin, Brett went on Tucker, and everybody was talking about, but nobody knew what they were talking about. Everybody was talking about Evergreen, but nobody knew what was actually happening at Evergreen. Even Brett Weinstein only saw a bit of what was going on at Evergreen, and he has a major part to play in that, and he's a major vector of understanding what happened, along with a couple other professors. But I had actually seen all of these workshops, the canoe meeting, all that stuff. Brett was also in the canoe meeting, and I felt it was important for me to speak about it, not only because I just felt like an internal need, and I actually feel like I'm just as nervous this moment as I was in the video that I'll show you in just a little bit. I had a really just a need to try to explain what was going on the ground from a first-person perspective, from my own lived experience as a preschool teacher, wherein I spent 15 years trying to teach children to become adults, only to go to college and watch college teach adults to act like children. And also there was a kid down the road who was talking about the whole thing because he had gone to Evergreen for like a year or so, a couple of years later, or a couple of years prior to that. And he was talking about what was going on at Evergreen, but he didn't know what he was talking about too. And everybody was watching him. I'm like, okay, there's a niche here for one more voice. And so I set up my camera in vertical video mode and I gave this spiel. Let's see if it plays. Hey, YouTube Rubberneckers. This is, my name is Benjamin Boyce. I'm coming to you live or recorded at the Evergreen College. And to prove that to you, this video will be shot in vertical video because that is apparently the way that we record everything on this campus. Instead of talking about the protests and talking about any given aspect of what's going on that's brought all attention to it, I want to kind of address what is actually going on underneath the surface. I want to talk about the structural framework that has given rise to this. And this framework is connected to events that are happening all across America in the academic institutions. There's a really strong push to teach people this concept of equity, or this concept of privilege, or this concept of intersectionality. You go to these workshops, whether you're a student employee or you're just a first-year student, and there's never any discussion about the actual the actual theory behind it. There's no argument, there's no debate about that. There's simply a presentation of it, and then different exercises so that you can internalize that. And that's basic. It's just doctrination, indoctrination. The presenter gets up in front of the class, and they write on the chalkboard. They divide the human entity into these different sorts of categories, right? And then they use those categories to assign this thing called privilege to a certain group. And the certain group, we all know this certain group right now. It's the white, generally male, generally Christian, generally heterosexual, generally this other thing called cisgender, or traditional gender. I don't know the Whoa. Really sorry about that, guys. That was not supposed to happen. Maybe it didn't download all the way. Shoot. Really sorry about that. Maybe I can go over here and first. We'll go to the first. And man, that's lame. Really sorry about that, guys. I guess I can kind of remember what I was trying to say. I was trying to say, in that moment, I didn't really get into the details of it. I was trying to explain the psychology of the students on the ground right then and right there, which was that they'd been taught to think of things in terms of sociology and of history. And in preschool, I had taught the kids how to interact as individuals with other individuals. And I did this whole spiel about the meaning of please and thank you, how we don't just teach kids to say please and thank you as empty gestures, but please can I have some milk and thank you for giving me milk is a act of recognition that another human being is serving you. And so you start to develop a theory of mind, a theory of individuality, a theory of responsibility, a theory of respect, and then a theory also of shame. And that shame and guilt is rooted not in some sort of historical sociological narrative, but it's in relationship to yourself and to others. Like, are you worthy of respect? And you could extrapolate that and bring in God into the equation if you so believe in God, that God is ultimately your judge. But I think that in absence of a transcendent godhood that judges you, anybody who's a respectable person has some sort of view of their life, some sort of understanding of their legacy, the understanding of self-respect, that they try to treat other people with respect because they want to be respected. And this sociological, so-called social justice movement looks at everything in terms of history and looks at in terms of demographics. And so any individual is not a human being. Every individual is a product of their historical moment and needs to be working in line or against. Ultimately, you're either working for what the arc of history is bending toward, which is justice, or you're interrupting that justice and you're complicit in the opposite of justice, which would be injustice. And so what I was trying to explain in that first video is that the way that the college students were acting was so egregious and so unhinged because they were acting not towards individuals. They were not acting as individuals. They were acting, they had construed their egos as pitted against this grand historical narrative. And there was nothing that slowed them down. There was nothing that held them in check. And furthermore, when we go through and we see what happened in the aftermath, which I hadn't seen in that video, which was 6 years ago to this day, that the college administration and the professors who were on the side of these students, everybody who taught the students to act that way, had no recourse to slow them down and no way to judge them because the students were correct. Brett Weinstein was the one who was wrong for standing in the way of justice. Now, what is that justice? Where does that justice end up? How does it conclude itself? How do we know we've achieved actual social justice? The progressive lens, so-called, just like these lenses right here, it can look at historical wrongs and it can look at a future utopia, but it really can't see the step between future utopia and historical wrongs. It gets mired in that eternal, just the sludge of history and evil, and it can't escape that. And so you have these kids acting in this way. Little did I know, 3 years later, after the COVID pandemic, or at least the response to the COVID pandemic, locked everybody up, and that narrative was getting a little shaky. And then somehow, for some reason, the Evergreen State College protest went absolutely global. And God rest his soul, George Floyd was used as a martyr for this great movement, and why that movement got so big, why that movement was promoted by all of these interests, all this media and the political machine. You could take that as cynical, like, yes, it is in the interest of the people who want to oust Trump and to gain more power for this chaos to ensue, this scholastic terrorism, or was it anarcho-tyranny, where, you have AOC, Maxine Waters, President Harris, rallying those ground troops and nobody actually prosecuting Antifa in order to scare people and to move history in a certain direction. Now, the people who are on the ground, who are useful idiots, those are the ones who are thinking they're caught up in this grand narrative and they're kind of losing self-control. There's nothing to control them at that moment. And then the people in power get more power no matter what. So George Bridges, although I do think that he was a deep believer in social justice, still is a deep believer in social justice, he was selected by the system of which he is a part. And this is the then president of the Evergreen State College. He was selected by that system and trained by that system. He even worked in the federal government for a while to promote power, to always go in the path of power. And that's why you see today, I think it was, or yesterday, the United States of America has now flown a flag, that Progress Pride flag, between the American flag. It's very, very evident that that Progress Pride flag is the flag of what is now not the United States of America anymore. It's some sort of other thing. It doesn't have a name yet. You could probably call it all these different names, Globo Homo, the American Empire, some other thing like the Davos Institute. I don't know. It doesn't really have a name. It can't really call itself a name because it's not located in a locale. It's located in these bureaucracies. It's located in these unelected officials that are, again, selected by the system to promote the system. And that system is now what's ruling America. And that system has taken the Pride Progress flag as its standard. And it will promote that and it will enshrine that. And what that actually means, what that actually covers, is more power. It's freedom and individual empowerment for the useful idiots and unrestrained encroachment of the bureaucracy of the system of the technocracy more and more into people's lives, which is really dire. If you think about it, I get kind of hopeless when I think about it in those grand historical terms. But again, that's the trick of the system. The system thinks in grand historical terms. The system treats everybody as a demographic. The system itself is, in a certain way of speaking, satanic. It doesn't actually see our individuality. It doesn't care about our individuality. It will only empower us insofar as we lend our individuality into this thing called identity. Identity is the simulacra of the individual. Identity is this way in which the individual submits itself, himself, herself, to the system. The system recognizes it. The system organizes it. The system connects it with other people. And then the system gives it, 145 sacred days for its sexual proclivities. It gives it a month, or in case of Canada, it gives it an entire season, which is called Pride, and which now literally does precede the fall, to celebrate itself. And what is being actually celebrated? Freaks and geeks in the street, and more encroachment of bureaucracy, and this really shallow sort of recognition of the self by and through the system. So when I think in terms of the system's framing, it is kind of dire. It does want to just chew me up and spit me out and regulate me according to my identity. And it will do that continually, and will continue to do that. And maybe there's hope in certain ways. Maybe certain tech oligarchs will be able to allow for enough freedom for the individual to express itself on a large stage, but even expressing myself on that large stage lends myself to becoming a simulacra of myself, insofar as I believe in the imprint or the footprint that I create on the internet and become some sort of personality, some sort of pundit. But again, if I back away from that, if I reserve a space of peace, quiet, and calm and centeredness in my own life and continue along the process of self-development, then what happens to the system is just what happens to the system. History is going to continually pivot in all these continual hallways and echo chambers, and I will be a witness to that. And insofar as I remain awake, insofar as I remain knowing, I just lost a window, good, and working towards my own humanity and the humanity of others, I think that there's an ability for us to survive. I think that there is, in a certain respect, a Noah's Ark that will get us through this flood of inhuman just wash of stuff. That's just my opinion, my belief, and when I disconnect from that cynical point of view that is adopted by the system of which I am a part, the technocracy, both in terms of the United States government and politics and in terms of this YouTube channel itself, which wants to turn me into some sort of ghost in the machine. Insofar as I step away from that and play with it playfully and kind of keep my distance and insert myself in a certain way into it, through it, to touch other people, to try to upload humanity and to use this to connect with other humans in that, I think that I'm to a greater or lesser extent free and safe from that. Now, whether I'm free or safe in terms of my livelihood and going forward, with my channel, maybe my channel will get nuked or not. And if I do get nuked on YouTube, do find me on, Rumble and Odyssey and BitChute, but actually Spotify is becoming YouTube's main competitor, actually. So I do encourage you, if you do want to watch my content and you don't want to support YouTube, Spotify is doing a really good job. It doesn't seem like there's any or that much at all kind of censorship, but the problem with Spotify is that you don't have this comment section that allows for a lot more traction between you and my other watchers and stuff like that. So that's kind of my spiel right now. I'm going to take a break because I forget to do that when I'm live streaming. If anybody has any questions, I will scroll through the chat, take another sip of my hoppy beverage, and probably tell you guys, I said that I'm going to be moving over the course of this month, so I'm going to be, my output's probably going to be a little bit compromised. I hope not, because I kind of need to work my butt off for the next year. I'm going to have to work my total butt off next year and try to figure out a way to go to the next level. And I don't know exactly what the next level is. It's not necessarily the shallow aspect of status, the shallow aspect of being an influencer and stuff, but I do need to believe in myself as a brand or as a person a little bit more in order to get to the next level. And how that next level shakes out, I'm not sure. I don't believe that any sort of slagging on myself or from other people of selling out is necessarily has traction, because I've protected myself and my brand from kind of selling out. I've put a lot of things in place to slow down any sort of massive growth, to slow down any sort of egotistical overtaking of myself by myself, because I've focused a lot on interviews. And I was thinking, I was playing around earlier this week with that fat fiasco, and I read that, and I hadn't been doing any commentary, read these little articles, make fun of some social justice shenanigans in a while. I got really sick of that, but it seems like that's fun. It's easy content. Seems like people are engaged with that more. So maybe I'll do more of that. Maybe I'll do more essays. I do want to get back into writing. Again, I want to, if I can figure it out with the finances and getting this channel to kind of run, take a break from my day job, which has been for the last 6 years being a school bus driver, which has been great. Been great to, drive these kids around, been great to be involved in my local community, to be known and to get to know people in my local community. Very important, very salient, and a nice little supplementary income. But it takes a lot of time. It takes 5 hours a day plus, coming back and going there, and coming back, sweating it out of me. So if things fall out more, I do want to get back into writing, maybe set up some sort of regular Substack and start to just read a lot. of political commentary, and political commentary for me is boring because I feel like most people don't really say anything. But when I read enough people, I start to think things. I start to concretize an idea, and then that's when I start to write. So doing this kind of stuff, I don't really produce writing. Doing these interviews, doing a lot of podcast, audio, video stuff has taken me away. And actually, I'd written my ass off at Evergreen. I had written probably 3.5 million words of fiction by the time that this YouTube thing fell in my lap. And when this YouTube thing fell in my lap, I completely disconnected from the written word. I mean, I tool around with it a little bit, but I just stopped really concentrating because my brain was getting wired in another direction. So I'd like to go in that direction too. And I think that would be a good supplement to this to see, what do I actually have to offer the world? This is something that I kind of do constantly, is like kind of checking in. What am I doing? Where am I going? How do I develop? What do people want? What do people respond to? How can I serve my community? How can I build a stronger community? How can I be of service and use to others? Like what kind of content can I make that is actually valuable, that actually helps other people? And I've been phenomenally lucky having this YouTube channel, landing this great story, this evergreen story. I took a lot of time just reading all those FOIAs, and I hope this has been recording. This has been recording, right? Oh, geez, that would be lame if it was just stuck on that movie. I think we're okay. And then doing all the interviews, getting involved in the gender thing, cracking open some stories, connecting people in that gender, then that counter-revolutionary or counter-gender space, getting them to recognize each other, and a lot of things are picking up on that. And it seems like gender's gone mainstream. All the stuff that I was doing, 5 or 6 years ago, has kind of become a part of the national discourse, and it's no longer new. Like, I don't know how I can actually affect it anymore, and that's kind of nice. It's not. I've been really blessed with just landing guests and being able to facilitate dialogue and connect with people and get people connected to each other. And so I'm really proud of the work that this channel has allowed me to do, or kind of forced me into doing. And so I kind of want to see where I can go from here on. Bicky Cogito asks, will your new place have those calming pastoral settings surrounding you? No, it won't. I'm going to be disconnected, at least for the next year, from this place. It's been a really great place to live, just kind of out in the boonies. And we're going to have to transport the cats up to a completely different environs. Kind of, it's kind of a town. It's kind of a rustic little town. It's kind of cute and stuff. So it's going to be my life is completely changing. I'm not going to get into like exactly how, but it's just like completely changing. I'm going into a completely different mode of life. And as time goes on, I'll probably reveal more of that. Though I've kind of done a lot to keep my personal life separate from my public life, but now my personal life is kind of going toward being a little bit more visible because of how it's changing. So that will be coming up. But no, we are not going to be living in the woods anymore. And hopefully my cats, we are removed from a busy road, so hopefully they figure out after a couple weeks inside how to be outside, and and then how to get along with chickens. I'm going to be getting some chickens apparently because my roommate wants to have chickens, and so we'll see how the cats interface with the chickens. And I think that they'll get along once they understand, at least once Bodhi understands that they're not to be eaten. But even chickens eat chicken. I mean, it's really hard not to eat chicken because chicken just tastes so much like chicken. Everyone wants to eat it. So we'll see how that goes. A little bit of a pause. I keep on forgetting to breathe. I also want to give a shout out to Ninja Kitty. Ninja Kitty's been moderating this channel phenomenally. I don't know to what extent this channel actually needs moderation, but Ninja Kitty is on almost every single one of my videos, doing a lot of work, being a silly little furball in the comments, and really appreciate your work, Ninja Kitty. Thank you very much for bringing a lot of life and style to the community building. So shout out to Ninja Kitty. Shout out also to Grace Zeman. Grace Zeman has worked with me extensively on the first portion of the Evergreen musical. And yes, the Evergreen musical is still going on. It's just taking a long time. I have a lot of songs. It's doing great. Gracie did a lot of work for that. And I actually met Gracie through this channel. So this channel's been just great finding a number of just wonderful, rad people. Rebecca asks if I remember the vulva lollipops. Vulva lollipops. Yes, they're probably my best video so far. Like at least my favorite video was the feminist flash therapy, and the vulva lollipops were kind of a riff on feminist flash therapy. If you guys want a good laugh from like old style, Ben with a very crappy webcam, just commenting on something, I found this group of women who go out into the woods and they flash nature and they get together and they come together and they celebrate their femininity and specifically their vulvas. And so that's pretty good little episode. So Benjamin L. Quinlan says, I love Benjamin Boyce to what extent this parasocial vector allows. I'm from the south of Ireland in a little city called Waterroard. Ben spoke to my professor Colette on her pod. Sorry, that was cool. Yeah, I should have Colette back on. If I was on her show, I don't know if she was on mine. So now I'm going to be wrapping up in about 10 or 15 minutes because I have a D&D group that I've been skipping out because my life has been changing so much. I haven't had time to spend with them. But if you guys have any more questions, I want to give a shout out to Georgina. Georgina's been around for a while. Telvildo has been around for forever. And he was questioning the direction of my channel. I've just absolutely loved your input in this channel. You've just always brought the goods, and I'm sure we don't agree or disagree. Or I'm sure we agree and disagree on a whole lot of different things. But thank you very much for being a part of my channel. Jenny's getting inky with it has been great too. Helen's been great too. So many of you guys, so many of you regulars have just been amazing, and I just really, really, really appreciate the last 6 years. It's been totally phenomenal. I didn't think my life was going to go in this direction. I hope I have 6 more years to, with this channel specifically. I think this channel is really important. It's really important to me. I think that I've done a lot of work archiving several different moments in our particular history that we share, and I hope that I can find new things to talk about and continually dilate that Overton window. As I like to say, I'm interested in right-wing stuff. I am interested in spirituality, specifically Christianity, but I know that spirituality and specifically Christianity are difficult topics to broach because our culture is still wrestling with that, because I think that there's a lot of movement in the right wing. I think there's a lot of movement and potential in certain people that are rising up within, kind of Christian and postmodern and post-atheistic spheres. And that's where I want to see what's going to happen there. I am a dissident. I do think that a lot of things are lost. I think that I don't know what to think about America. I don't know what to think about my country. I don't even know what to think about Washington. I know that for the most part, 85-90% of us are awesome people. And we have a lot of just tremendous amount of power and, resources and potentials. I think that the governing structures over us are rotted to the core, and I don't know how we go forward. I try not to have necessarily big opinions, like my Twitter handle for a while was weak opinions strongly worded. I'd rather lead with curiosity and playfulness than with certainty. And that has also been kind of why I haven't written a lot. You really do need to speak from a position of authority in writing, or because sarcasm doesn't really get itself across. But so there's that kind of that needle I need to thread, because I do need to have authority, but at the same time, I like to have tentative authority. I like to make things alive on the page. And that's why my fictions are so terribly rickety and complex and folding in on each other and stuff like that. And that's why I kind of put them aside. So maybe as I go back to that, I'll develop more. Connect Saram said 15% is what we need. Keep spreading the word, the world, and welcoming former ideological opponents gracefully into the fold. Fried Man Designs, nice name. The backwoods and dark, deep green places, mostly eastern Washington, though some areas of the Cascades are still somewhat tranquil, grove-like, are still mostly rational. I do think that things are on the way to getting better, but the systems themselves, they're really rickety and they're going to eat themselves. And hopefully, I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully. So I just really want to promote humanity and openness, curiosity and playfulness and goodness and truth and beauty, and do what I can to lift up those voices. And, I thank all of my audience too for allowing me the room to go in these different directions. I went really, really far with gender, and I lost a lot of people going from the racial, social justice stuff just into gender for a really long time. I spent like a year at least just focusing primarily on that. And so I thank people for, allowing me to do that, maybe coming back, maybe, kind of saying, oh, this isn't for me, and just skipping the videos that aren't for them. I think that work was really important to do when I did it. And as I go forward, I want to bang around a bunch of different places. And so any given person that I talk to is not going to line up with you, not going to line up with me, is not going to be, necessarily the best speaker or necessarily touch you in certain ways. But I think that there are so many different avenues, and specifically so many different random, normal people to talk to lift up and to bring into the conversation. And doing that, kind of going out there and doing kind of talent scouting and seeing where people, lay on the vector of talent, but just giving more and more voices the opportunity to kind of step up and speak out. I think that in and of itself has a counter-revolutionary force, especially if those people are given the chance to be humans and to discuss in a conversant manner just, who they are, what they think, and why they think that. So I appreciate your patience, and, feel free to skip any given video that you don't like. I'm sure that there'll be other things that will align for you, and I absolutely welcome feedback in the comments. I do get kind of snarky first thing in the morning when somebody criticizes me. So I do kind of act a little snarky, but I do appreciate all the criticism, and especially the constructive criticism. And especially I do support, I very much greatly appreciate the financial support and the emotional support that you guys give. And I don't play that stuff up as much as possible. I'm more of a stickler of, with regard, I respond more to criticism than I do to, comfort or, compliments and stuff like that. But I do appreciate all that stuff because it does give me the feedback to go in these directions and to keep on going in these directions. So, Canuck Saram asks if I've ever interviewed Jesse Matchy. No, I will write that down. So we have a couple more minutes. If you guys want to ask me other questions, I'll wrap up the stream. Sorry for the video didn't play. I will link my first video in the comments along with my tip jar. And I think there was a couple other things that I mentioned that I could link. So if you guys want any links in the description, just comment them on the page and I'll put them in the description for you later on. Gordy G's just showing up and I'm just leaving. Merrick's on light duty, listening to Benjamin speed up, working through every minute of content. Georgina says, don't be afraid of the occasional sharp question in the conversations, especially when the guest reveals themselves to be engaging in doublespeak. Yeah, so this is great. You guys are wonderful, glowing. My life's about to change drastically. Hopefully when it's proper and in the proper way, I will update you with regards to that, because it's really just an absolutely phenomenal change that my life has undergone in the last 6 or 7 weeks. It's just been completely off the charts, just totally different. So thank you guys very much for your support, for tuning in. I'm filled with love for all the people who interact with this channel. And, if you ever want me to interview, you have a guest that you think I should interview, go ahead and recommend them to me. And if it's a good fit and if it's possible for me to get them on, I'm always looking for content. I'm always looking for new voices. And Kapupu says biscuits for Benjamin, but I think everybody should have a biscuit. So please find a biscuit, butter it up, jam it down, and just enjoy yourself. Chaucerian Fraud. I also want to give a shout to Chaucerian Fraud. Vehement atheist, but always engaging, has a very strong opinions, but always engaging. So I really appreciate, we probably disagree on a lot of things, and you probably disagree with a lot of my guests, but you're always there saying your opinion, arguing your points, and in a way that I think is really important and really stirs up discussion. And that's just great. That's just great. I'm going to end on this, and I'll let people guess what's going on, and I'm going to peace out. You guys are wonderful. God bless, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Good night.